Hi, this is Abhishek Sengupta, and welcome back. You are listening to Abhishek Sengupta audio blogs. Now, we are here with another episode of Knowledge Talks. Now, in this episode of Knowledge Talks, we have someone special. It's David Pedra Costa. He is based in Madeira Island, Portugal. He is the author of Guide in Wealth. David is a University of Lisbon, or the Lisbon School of Economics and Management valedictorian student of both management undergraduate degree and of finance master degree. Now, he was also a professor at this school for 2 years. He currently holds the position of deputy board member on the biggest Portugal ship operator and is the technical director for stevedoring company in the same group. David is also a financial literacy advocate and a local Young Entrepreneur Association board member with initiatives on financial literacy and small business development. First and foremost, David, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. I was very pleased to receive it and to see our other content, which has been great, phenomenal.
Thank you so
congratulations
much,
to you for your previous recordings as well.
Thank you so much, David. Now, as the David is here with us, we have taken a wonderful and a very interesting topic for discussion, wealth for entrepreneurs. David, I'm going straight to the point. Now, my point number one is wealth creation and entrepreneurship. Most business owners start their enterprise to provide a better product or service. Now, wealth creation most likely is not one of their objectives. Now, entrepreneurs hope to earn enough income to put food on the table, pay rent, and draw remuneration. That's a reasonable approach, I must say. Yet some entrepreneurs may be selling themselves short because they are not maximizing the long-term financial potential of their enterprise. Now, this calls for the concept of wealth creation in the journey of entrepreneurship. David, what's your opinion on this? Over to you.
I think that's a very fair point. Most entrepreneurs do start by exploring their own capabilities and their know-how. And by definition, the starting point is at an amount that will allow you to live. So we'll cover your rent, we'll cover your food and basic needs. Everyone has to provide for their family. And despite the idea that entrepreneurs are trying to build the next SpaceX, most people are just trying to use their know-how to increase their well-being. However, the difference many times between having just your basic needs fulfilled and creating generational wealth is about scale. So most of the time we're talking about the ability of scaling up your business. And not all businesses can be scaled to infinity, but all of them can take the next step. And to scale up, your number one step is identifying your core and being real specific about your core. The journey to entrepreneurship many times is about delegating. So the step to delegate is, or the importance of delegating is to free up your time. You are the business owner and you are the one that knows the most about that business. So the more time you have for yourself, the more you can grow. So the ability to delegate comes down to a single point, which is identifying your core. So what can you delegate? You delegate anything that is not your core. So the value created from this is that by identifying your core, you are identifying why customers go to you. So for example, if you have an accounting service, people expect you to have great timing, great compliance, great execution, but they do not need to see you do your own accounting. So you can hire someone to do your own accounting. That will be the first step, for example. The idea here is identifying what is the easiest stuff to free up your time. So if you're an accounting service provider and you have several similar customers, for example, let's say restaurants, you have 7 restaurants. It's easier to hire and delegate when you can do the most complex restaurant, cover all of those, the relevant points with that most complex customer, train an additional member of staff, and have them do the other 6. Okay. So the point here is, how do you do this without getting bloated? Avoiding getting bloated also is not hiring people for what you don't need. So if you're providing value through your accounting services, it's easier to scale if you hire someone and teach them what you know, rather than going on an adventure and trying to hire someone to provide consultancy services when you're just getting your foot on the door. So the difference between putting bread on the table, so to speak, I don't know if this is only a Portuguese saying, but the difference between putting food on the table and scaling is identifying what you already do very well and training and hiring people that can follow your steps. That way you can focus more of your hours on acquiring new customers and growing your business through what you already know. So I don't know if that addresses the entirety of the question, but through my experience, the most important step is delegation and hiring on your core. So identifying perfectly what is that you already do best, what customers do you network with the best, and growing through that point or through that mean.
Wow, that's amazing, David. David, 3 points I have personally noted. First and foremost, you have to first identify your core reason. You cannot do anything and everything. So core is very, very important. This is point number 1. And secondly, once you are there in the core, I must say, second thing, you have to delegate, because you cannot focus out of the core. You have rightly said that whatever is your core, you focus on that, and anything other than that, it's better to delegate. That's how it goes into scalability. And unless and until, a business scales up, it is very, very difficult to create wealth, because every person has got a limitation. Probably a one person, we can do a certain number of job in a day. Probably if I'm getting probably if I can do around 10 job a day, probably. Now, in order to scale up, I require 100 job a day. But of course, me being a human being, I'll not be able to do that. That's a human limitation. So delegation, other than the core area, is the right way how we can scale up, point number 1. And more the business scale up, more revenue increases, and that's how the this wealth creation starts, right?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. Just to readdress something, which is, as you explained, instead of selling your hours, you're selling your knowledge. That's what you do when you delegate and you hire. You train, use your knowledge to train others and sell their hours. So you're now in a point where you sell knowledge and success instead of your hours. Yeah.
Well, that's really, really very, very interesting. Now, this takes me to my second point. Now, what is business creation in entrepreneurship? Now, wealth creation is a process of investing in different asset classes where the investments will help in fulfilling key needs. Now, these investments should also be self-contained, that can generate a stable source of income, helping one to fulfill their business goals. Could you enlighten us on this, on the business perspective? Over to you.
Yes. So I think a small point needs to be made here, which is investing in different asset classes or reinvesting in the same. And I brought 2 examples of famous or relevant entrepreneurs that each do opposites, just so we can compare their approaches. So let's take, for example, a person that stays in their lane and reinvests into the same sector. Nick Huber. So he's a player in self-storage who has stuck to self-storage and grown very largely and very quickly in that same sector. A point has to be made. So you are essentially exposing yourself to a single risk, which is of course risky, but you can personally divest that amount in your individual financial appliances. So you can, if you are stuck investing in stocks, for example. Let's say you are working in self-storage and you're investing in the energy sector through stocks or bonds, whichever instrument you prefer. You are essentially investing in that sector while delegating management. And we're back to delegation, because you're not having a direct influence on the business, but you're still exposing yourself. So I would say, of course, you need always different asset classes, but sometimes you can do this through already the income that you derived from a single asset class investment. That is not my personal style. I prefer to invest throughout different asset classes. And another example from this, or of this approach, would be Cody Sanchez, for example, who has done the opposite essentially of Nick Huber. She picks classic businesses such as car wash, laundromats, HVAC businesses, and applies a somewhat similar strategy for all of them, which essentially goes, okay, I can see a business that does not have an online presence, that still does booking by the phone, that still does invoicing by the phone. And all of these things are tremendously inefficient. All of these things require manual labor, hours that you are going to pay. So an example of investing in different asset classes or different sectors would be looking for companies that are clearly inefficient and applying a similar recipe. Just going back to Cody's example, I find it fascinating because she picked a very intuitive approach, which is let's make these businesses work better, which as a customer, if you've ever been in a place where you've gone, wow, management does not care about this place, this does not work, you are in a position where you can make it better because you have felt it and you know how you can improve it. But now she has scaled up in a sector that people say is not scalable because you're operating individual small companies. But she has achieved such a scale that she is now raising capital to invest in software that is applicable to a majority of SMBs. So I find it very interesting that you are able essentially to scale up, whether you divest in or if you change your asset classes or not, which is why I was saying at the beginning that my personal style is to invest in different sectors, different asset classes, businesses with different maturities, because your knowledge and your operating knowledge that you acquire is also scalable in itself. I find it very rare that people do a 180 degrees change and simply walk away from a sector. Most people, and me, I can give my example as well. I worked for several years in financial advisory and financial services. And I'm now in a situation where I'm trying to widen my customer base. I'm starting to operate online, and I'm starting to both horizontally and vertically integrate other services, which is, I think, to the point of your question, which is how do you move around different asset classes and different investment points? Vertical integration is an example of how you can do this, which is that instead of leaving your sector, you move upstream or downstream. This gives you an additional risk, which is you are always in that sector. However, it also gives you an opportunity of creating barriers to entry for others. So you are now in a position where you can dominate or be a significant player across an entire sector. Alternatively, you can go the route of Cody Sanchez, which is horizontally move, which is you are essentially picking the same position, but doing so in different sectors. Okay. For example, I have tried to mix a bit of both. For someone that comes from the financial sector, you have several skills that are horizontally applicable. You have analytics skills, you have forecasting skills, and every sector needs that. Or you can go vertically and you go, I am now specializing on pure finance and I'm doing from feasibility studies to consultancy services to capital raising services. So both paths are valid, but I prefer to diversify as much as I can, because my main objective is to maintain my standard of living. So I find it wise, and I recommend that you diversify your assets as much as you can.
Wow, that's great. That's really great. You have put both the points together. First is there is one option when once you get the profit, you reinvest the profit in the same sector. That is one way of doing it. Here, your expertise or probably your scalability, that can also lead to scalability of your business, because once you start reinvesting the profit, that will go for a scalability, and in turn, it will go for a wealth creation and long run. And second option is you have said instead of putting it all the eggs in the same basket, you put the eggs in the different basket. So that is also a safer approach, because at times what happens, there is one industry which might collapse, or probably one sector of business might get impacted because of something or other, probably internal factors, external factors, market factors, international factors, whatever it could be. So that could be another option, so that you start getting earnings from different baskets altogether. This is one. And second thing, which you have rightly pointed, you can either do horizontal expansion or the vertical expansion. So this is something, I must say, or probably you will be the right person to again say, that probably one's conscious and one analysis really plays a role in this. So which one should one pick up? And that's expertise is one option. Comfortability is second option. And third thing is that even if someone is, comfortable with one way of investing in order to earn returns, can always start investing in this little other way, so that again, not putting the same basket, all the eggs in the same basket, because that also minimizes the risk to a huge extent. Because COVID-19 has taught some very, very, I must say, very, very tough lesson, very, very brutal lesson, I must say. So it's
Yes,
very good pointers which we got from you. Now, this takes me to my next point. Now, ways of wealth creation for business. Now, business offers a lot of avenues for wealth creation. Now, this can be of great help for business. A business need to identify the opportunities and resources which can help in the creation of the wealth for them in long run as well as in short run. Could you please let us understand the ways this can happen? Over to you.
Yeah. So the thing about providing value, which is at the basis of this question, is again, I briefly touched on it before, which is the core, and identifying your core. The thing people usually miss is a very simple question. People miss it all the time, which is, what do I do? Okay, so what value do I provide? And people miss it in the first place because they think they get to answer that question. They do not. The people that answer that question are the customers. And through their feedback, you get to zero in on who you are. For example, I was providing financial advisory to a customer. And the first question we asked after their name is, what do you do? And they said, I'm a logistics provider. And I immediately went, well, that's not enough. To identify your core, to scale, to be effective throughout decades, you need to be very, very, very specific. So you're a logistics provider of what? Okay, I'm a logistics provider to off-port customers, so people away from ports. Okay, we're getting there. What do they transport? Okay, I'm a logistics provider to customers of port who transport perishable goods. Okay, and why do they go to you? Oh, because we have a storage facility. Oh, so you're a logistics provider to off-port customers who transport perishable goods, who need intermediate storage. Okay, so from 4 words, I am a logistics provider, we have a full 3-line sentence of what you do. And this is the only way you can move forward, because this helps you in 3 different ways. First of all, it tells you why your existing customer base uses you, which is something that many corporations do, especially when they're growing, do not know. Because what the mistake I must commonly see when I advise a company is growing in the wrong direction. So they say, oh, we're going to target restaurants because all of our existing customers are restaurants. Okay. But are all of those existing customers restaurants with sports TV where people go to watch sports? Because those are entirely different things. A Michelin star, the restaurant, or an Irish pub do not have the same needs. So the three ways where identifying your core help you is: one, why do our customers come here? Two, what other customers could use our services? Because once you identify it, you know anyone with these characteristics should be our customer. And three, where do we move on from here? So again, with the logistics provider, in our long sentence, it ended with customers that required intermediate storage. If we remove that, can we add something else? Or can we even remove it altogether and say that any customer of port of perishable goods can use us? So what is holding you back from that? Maybe if they do not need intermediate storage, they are using transport vehicles with refrigeration. If that is the case, maybe you should invest in that. So that is how identifying your core and really doubling down and being very, very specific will help you. Because you can then say, okay, in this case, the only thing holding me from doubling my customer base is directing my next investment to include an additional capability. So that is why I think that value creation is intimately connected with identifying your core and knowing what your core is in specifics, in detail.
Wow, that's really amazing. Now, one thing that I really understood from you is that first thing first, in order for value creation, it is very, very important to stick to the core. What exactly is your core? Point number one. Secondly, why you are different, why the people are coming to you. In our management terms or in our business term, at times we term it as a unique proposition. For example, you said you are a logistic provider with a storage facility, right? So that's a unique proposition. You are just not a logistic provider who pick up the stuff from one place and they dump it on the other place. It's not like that. Plus you have an intermediary storage facility. That is something unique proposition, what we call that. So if we have our unique proposition and core area, right, then it also gives a focused approach to approach or I must say that target the clientele or target the customers, because once the customer has got a specific need and our facilities and whatever the things we have should fit into that need. That's clear cut a game of demand and supply. They have a demand and our supply has to fit in to their demand so that we can keep getting the business. Number one. Number two is that once we are there and the unique proposition is well identified, we can present it. That's how we can, go for the scalability. Number one, in long run. In short run, we can also go for an immediate sale, because most of the people which I have said, they focus on sale, but with sale, first sale, second sale, third sale, how it goes on, they miss the longer term, or I must say the longer planning of scalability. So that focus the people live. So once the business becomes scalable after identifying the unique proposition, the core area or KRA, whatever we call as a key result area. So that's how we scale up. And once the business starts scaling up, then of course, it is one of the key of generating wealth for business. Now, I'm going a little different with my next point. Now, business and passive income. Just like a person, a business can have passive income sources too. Now, this can be of help for business, as this can give a regular flow of money, which is other than the regular income which they, or I must say the focused income which they get. However, most of the businesses generally ignore this part. Now, could you please enlighten us on that? And also, could you let us know what could be the passive income sources for a business? I can understand this will vary from business to business or sector to sector or service or product lines to are completely different. How do you see this, and how a business can find out a passive income source so that they can go on for their scalability? Over to you.
Yeah. So passive income is, I'm sure I can, obviously we have spoken, and I know we have extensive knowledge in this area, but so I know we have spoken before, and you're clearly very knowledgeable, but for the people at home, so just a small point about passive income, because passive income is several times misunderstood by the general public, which seem to see it as a miracle business that requires no work and no investment, and then gives you money forever. Passive income still requires a lot of upfront time and or cash to make it work. I find it interesting because businesses mostly, or throughout my experience, do not look at this, which is interesting to say the least. Now, I should say that some sectors, such as energy, essentially work as passive income centers. So many energy investments, such as electrical dams, can be seen perfectly as passive income, because you have a lot of upfront investment, and then you collect essentially rents, because you have a minimum that they will consume and pay for a minimum price throughout decades. So I'll remove the energy sector from this question, because by its definition, in many sectors, it is essentially passive income. Any investment in grids is also essentially an upfront investment that will collect your rents. So let's move on to other points. A very interesting passive income business opportunity that I do not see explored is the selling or renting, however you prefer, of brands and patents. I remember that when Kodak went bankrupt, it's been a couple of years, it's been a couple of decades, but when they went bankrupt, they sold thousands of patents and know-how that was just stuck, that was not used in operations, was not in the foreseeable development, and was just stuck in a drawer, losing value by the year. Like Kodak, others have the same situation. And I understand that these corporations have developed it, and it required a lot of effort. And there's always that small thing in the back of the ear that says, maybe one day we'll get to it. But capital is costly, and we need to be efficient here. If you've developed efforts and spent money creating a brand that you will not explore, or creating patents that you will not explore, just sell them, rent them, collect royalties, just do something like that. Other alternatives, and this is much more normal to be explored, are investments in real estate, which when you have a corporation that you are planning in 10 years, sometimes you buy land or buildings that you anticipate, okay, this is a good price for the area and for the time. But come 5 years and you are in a position that either the business has changed or capital has become more expensive, and you do not explore any business opportunities in that land or building. Now, most corporations already rent them out. But a main reason why corporations do not explore these passive income opportunities is because occasionally the pressure to distribute dividends and run an efficient operation that goes exactly along the lines of a benchmark that was done by a consulting firm does not allow you to explore those passive income opportunities, even if they are close to your core. So I think that's the main reason why most corporations do not follow passive income leads or passive income possibilities, because there is a lot of pressure to distribute dividends immediately and or to run your corporation according to very harsh metrics that are done by benchmarks of other corporations. So many times, or in many sectors, we're in a situation if our competition is not doing this, we cannot pursue it either. That's, I think, the main reason.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. You have rightly said that, uh, I feel that, we must keep our ears and eyes open while looking for passive income. As you have rightly mentioned that, real estate is one of the best. You can rent out a part of your office or probably a part of your assets which you have that can really earn a lot of, passive income. And most of the time, we have to find out this passive income opportunities over a period of time, because you have rightly pointed out that at times we can get some real estate at a good price in a good area, which can have a good opportunity over a period of time, may not be immediately but after that. And second point is that you have mentioned that passive income, there is a myth that it starts, it's in an auto mode, it keeps on rolling and we keep on getting money, and it's nothing like that. But instead we have to put our real efforts forward in order to generate that stream. So it's not that easy, but it's not that difficult either. It has to be well planned. It has to be done in a very, very proper way. So this takes me to my next point, the wealth and income efficiency. Now, wealth creates a lot of sources of income for business, and this helps to contribute to the cash flow of the company. Now, this further becomes a recurrent affair. Now, this leads to efficient flow of income. Now, rather contributes to the income efficiency of the company. What is your opinion on this? Over to you, David.
I think that's a very interesting point, and it does not have a very simple answer. So obviously, if you are investing in your own company and you do not dilute the capital, meaning that you remain either 100% or the majority shareholder, you want your income to grow and materialize in a growth of assets as well. So I'm now in the board of a corporation that has a situation like this. So the majority shareholder is also the CEO. And it created a corporation of decades of success, which is now in a position that it has a very cash flow positive activity and minimal debt. What this allows you to do is to pursue essentially any business opportunity that you see as advantageous, because you have an anchor of decades of outperforming the market, which has given you as an equity that is almost the entirety of the assets. So with your know-how, your time in the market, and your operational capabilities, you can essentially expand into any sector that falls within your core. And all that I said before also applies here. It's a corporation that clearly identified its core, performed to its best, did not rush things, so did not try to become what it is in year 30 on its second year of operation, and steadily grew. So now we are in a position with every credit crunch. This company, headed by a brilliant guy, can pursue essentially any acquisition that it wants, can pursue targeting specific sectors that they want to invest more into, and can grow where others have failed. When we talk about being efficient or income efficiency, I see it as a company that has grown without becoming bloated, which was what we were speaking about before. When you grow alongside your core, you essentially prevent bloating, which is the siphoning of income and of cash flow into activities that do not generate long-term wealth to the company and to the shareholders. So by keeping to the core and increasing marginally, so we're speaking improving 1 to 5% each quarter, and always building a culture of how can we do this better? How can we do this more efficient? Instead of being a culture of where can we grow to? How do we make a cover of the next magazine? How do we show up in New York with everyone applauding us? No, you go, if we're operating in South Europe, there has to be a very big reason for us to change this. And if there is, which in this case there was, and the company now operates in Africa as well, and in Western Africa, we, after decades of outperforming the market, are in a position where you can go, this is a good business opportunity. This mixes well with our culture. This mixes well with the operational knowledge that we have acquired, and we can pursue that. So for me, efficiency of cash flow is not exactly a financial issue, is more of an operational issue and a culture issue. Of course, if you have terrible know-how in finances, you are not going to be able to get the benefit from this. But basically, you essentially have to marginally, step after step, small steps each time, improve your operations, prevent doing crazy investment decisions that do not go alongside your core, and wait. Income efficiency comes with time, and its benefits are clear. It buys you freedom. This is usually seen on a personal level, but on a corporate level as well, because you can choose how much to invest, how much to risk. You have essentially free access to debt, because when corporations have this much equity, banks are asking you to lend you some money. So whenever you want to leverage, you can leverage. And you can do this through another corporation, a smaller corporation. So it does not risk the entirety of the economic group. So income efficiency is the objective and should be targeted by each corporation. Don't try to grow 20 years in two, and just step after step, go in that direction.
Wow, that's amazing. I think few points we got from you. Number one is that it's more of a culture issue rather than it's a financial issue, more of a culture dependent. I must say it's operation dependent over there. Better the operation, the efficient will be everything, including the income. This is number one. Secondly, you have rightly pointed out, you have to give your income time. You should not time your income. Or it's generally said that you must give your investments time, should not time your investments. So, what you are supposed to do in 20 years, you should not rush to do it in 2 years. So this is absolutely an accidental case that will do more harm than good. So this is something, these are two very good, pointers which we got from you. Now, over here, let me take this discussion to a different aspect altogether, I must say. The challenges in wealth creation, like any other process, wealth creation process also has a lot of challenges. They act as hurdles and at times as discouragement. Now, this helps, I must say, this need to be identified and dealt in due course of time, or exactly on time. Could you let us know the key aspects of it? I mean, the key hurdles or challenges which comes up in the process of wealth creation, and how to deal with those. Over to you.
So be it on a corporate level or an individual level, the hurdles at the beginning stages are very much alike. The first hurdle is the first sale. So
yes.
The first dollar or euro.
Yes.
This is the first hurdle, which is something that people, it's not, you build it and they will come, does not exist. you have to chase customers, and the first sale is a big step. And I try to tell everyone, I teach as well, so try to tell my students, remember that first sale and cherish it. Even if you're doing a 50% discount because you have to tell other people that you've already done it, cherish it and enjoy it, and remind yourself of what you did with that money, which hopefully was to reinvest. I mean, your first sale should be to reinvest, but still remind yourself of what you bought and how you felt. I would say that the second big step is hiring someone. There are several intermediate steps, which mostly come with compliance, paying taxes, and so those are all significant hurdles. But hurdles to growth, I would say that the second big step is hiring the first person. And the third big step is your first significant investment, be it on physical asset, software, even job training. There are a ton of significant investments you can make. I would say that the next hurdles are all repeats of these. So the next hurdles are scaling up, which you see through your sales. So it's a repeat of this first step. And the second hurdle is hiring a team and then expanding that team, which is a repeat of the second hurdle. So, and again, your next hurdles would be, how do you invest? What do you buy? When do you buy it? How do you finance it? So I tell people not to overthink it. Don't, much like you're not going to rush 20 years into, don't try to think 20 years into. You should have a 10-year plan, definitely. But most of the decisions that you are going to make, you've already made them on a smaller scale. Again, is it the same buying an office space or renting an office space in your home country or hometown or in a neighboring country? No, it's not the same. But when you go down to make a decision to do the analysis, the drivers of the business are exactly the same. So again, you face those challenges when you have to face them. And throughout your path, just make sure that you are sitting down and analyzing data to ground your decisions. If you're undertaking a valid analysis for your first steps, you will also take a valid analysis and make a valid analysis for your 20th step. You'll be fine. Most people get as much as they put into it. And you should realize, again, if you're making solid analysis, if you've identified your core, you will have ups and downs, but you should not be afraid or should have a mental block about hiring the 10th person for your team, because you've already hired 9. You should not be afraid or be over anxious about the first time you cross $1 million in sales in a year, because you've already crossed the 100,000. And when you crossed that 100,000, it seemed impossible. Much like your first sale, many people think it's impossible. So again, the main hurdle is the first sale, the first hiring, the first investment. After that, you just repeat the process. You repeat the analysis, you repeat the decision. Hopefully the returns also repeat themselves. So that's what I would say. Take a breath, one step at a time, you'll be fine.
Amazing, amazing. It's a very difficult step, but you have explained this in the very, very simple words. Even a layman can really understand the way you have explained. You have rightly said that first sale is the first hurdle, then first employee, I must say the first team member is the first, second hurdle, and the first finance is the third hurdle. And whatever we do, it's just a repetition of the same. So in place of 1%, you are probably taking 10%. Again, the hurdles will be the same. The challenges will be more or less the same, but it's always better because we have already faced those challenges at one point of time. So it's at times easy to handle them because we have a prior experience. We know what are the precautions we must say, what are the mistakes we must avoid, and so on. Same goes for sale, and same goes for getting the finance. So that's there. And another point I really like, which you've just explained, you do not go in hurry, because you have time and again said that don't hurry your process, don't get hushed up with everything, don't do 20 years job in 2 years. That's very, very important, because that will create more harm rather than get more hurdles than the real solution. So breaking down the goals, because you should not be thinking 20 years right now, think of probably 10 years or 5 years. You break down a big goal into smaller goals, and that will really help you. Because I know we are very fond of cricket, and at times in India we have a great batsman at one point of time by the name of Sunil Gavaskar. He was one of the greatest batsmen, greatest cricketer of all times. So one of the once I remember one journalist has asked, okay, Mr. Gavaskar, how do you plan your century? How do you plan getting 100 runs? He said, no, I don't plan for 100 runs. I just plan for next 5 runs. So what he meant is that don't run after big targets, or don't think too much in advance. Rather, break your big goal into smaller goals and focus on them. So that's how you create a hurdle of 5 runs. Then you again create a hurdle of next 5 runs, next 5 runs, next 5 runs, and so on. So hurdle which you faced in creating your first run, exactly the same hurdle you will face in creating 95th run. So it's the same thing. You are facing a ball, facing a bowler, and keeping your wicket, and you are making runs. So that's how exactly what you have. Exactly, this is what you have explained. So this brings us to almost the end of our discussion. It was a wonderful discussion with David. David, any closing remarks would you like to provide?
I'd just like to say to any person that may be wondering if they should start, start your first sale. Anyone I've met personally that made their first sale did it while doing something else. So they did their first sale, or they closed their first sale while they were studying or while they were working. It will require effort. You will need to end your job, then go home and work. Maybe there will be some parties you will not be able to attend. If that's something you can sacrifice, go and do it, because most people that listen to this type of medium are still young, and you do not feel the need for an additional stream of income when you're 25 most of the time. I mean, of course, you'd like a better car, you'd like something else, but that's not need. And I mean by feeling need is the need to provide for a child or for elder parents. So do focus on that. I'm sure you'll have 1,000 questions like I had when I did my first sale. I did not know how to invoice someone, but most questions can be answered by Google. Fortunately, we are at a time where we can do that. And hopefully, if you were in doubt, this conversation, which was very pleasant, and again, thank you for the invitation, will lead you in that direction. If, again, I'm available in LinkedIn and Twitter, it's my name, David Pedra Costa. So if there are any specific questions, Abhishek, I'm sure you understand this. We're always looking for content, so feel free to reach out. If you have any doubts, any questions, I'll address them. I'll turn into a post. It will be okay. So yeah, just go for it. Try it out, and maybe you'll try and you will not like it, and you will decide, oh, maybe what I need is a corporate life, because I'm not saying this is easy, but if you like it, like I do, and Abhishek surely does because he's also doing this, you'll enjoy it. It will not be as much a sacrifice as it seems in the beginning, and it will come pleasure. So, hey, if anyone's listening, best of luck. Tell us the results. Tell us how it went.
Wow, that's great. It's a wonderful message, I must say. I request every one of you to please go and follow him in Twitter. Some of amazing tweets I got from his Twitter profile. That's how we got connected. That's how we are recording this session.
Thank you.
He provides some of the amazing insight in his Twitter handle. Please go ahead and follow him, and I'll give the link of this in the description as well. And this brings us to the end of this show. Thank you so much, David, for being a part of this show. Now, if you have any question, please write in the comment section. I'll answer it as soon as possible. And at the same time, I will give the Twitter and social media handle of David so that you can follow him and stay in touch and get benefited from his amazing tweet and insights. To my Apple Podcast listeners, I request for a review. I want an honest review how my podcast is helping you and enhancing your life. Thank you so much, David, once again. I'll be back with many such episodes. Till then, stay tuned, stay connected. Have a great day. Thank you so much, David, once again.